So I don't know why, but I do know that the person I was on October 6th and the people you were on October 6th do not exist anymore. The people we all were on October 6th do not exist any longer. None of us will ever be the same. That I know for sure. You know what happened October 7th? I don't need to tell you. We are all in a state of trauma. All of us are. We're in a state of complete trauma. And right now, there are things have to happen and change, but we'll never be the same. So we are, as I've said to you in the past, we are now in the Messianic Age.
Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the channel. If you enjoyed the content that you see today, leave a like down below, and please consider subscribing to the channel and become part of our growing community. With all that out of the way, enjoy the video. Shalom. Shalom, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Listen, as you all know, that there were some tragic events that occurred last year in Israel on October the 7th, when they were brutally and viciously attacked by Hamas. Many people, including men, women, children, were brutally murdered, raped in front of the world. They were videotaped. Videos were sent to their families while this was happening. It was a truly, truly brutal situation. The thing that's happened since then, it's brought a lot of unity within the Jewish community. A lot of Jews worldwide, including here in the United States. And we'll see in this video, this rabbi that kind of explains this as well. Many Jews have come together whereas maybe some were disputing over politics in different topics within our day, have now united because of the events that transpired on October the 7th. They're asking them, many of them, what they would call the final aliyah. And what that is a return home, a return to Israel, their homeland, because of and I'll just call, I really don't like using this word, but anti-Semitism, hatred towards the Jewish people is probably a more accurate way to say it, because Semite people encompass more than just Jews, but really it's a hatred for, let's just be honest, it's hatred for God's people, for God's chosen people, Israel. And we're seeing that worldwide, and we are absolutely seeing that here in the United States for sure. And many of the Jews are just not feeling safe in the communities that they are living at in the diaspora amongst the world. And they are being called again to come back home, a return to the land. A lot of this is, if you haven't read it, you see this really in Scripture. A lot of this is pointing to what Scripture has already prophesied would happen in these last days. And this ties into the topic of this video. A very prominent rabbi that goes by the name of Tovia Singer. And he's not the only one, mind you. You can find many rabbis that are saying the same thing, that the Messiah is here. The Moshiach is here. And the time of Jacob's trouble is among us. How does that coincide with our belief, those who believe in Yeshua? The timelines are pretty accurate and are pretty on par with our timeline as well. There are many, and we'll just say Christians, but many people who are believers in Yeshua, believers in Jesus, are of the mindset that the days that we are living in are in fact the days leading into Jacob's trouble. But it's very ironic to see people who do not believe in Yeshua as the Messiah that are claiming the very same thing that those who do believe in Yeshua, the Messiah, that his return is here, coming very, very, very close. It's very near. That time is absolutely very near. And so I want to play a video with this Rabbi Tovia Singer and let you see what he says about this as well. So let's go and play the video.
How do you view the current situation? Is this a time of Gog and Magog, so that would mean that the Messiah must already be among us, or is that a false assumption?
So a Messiah is always among us. That's why the Messiah is called a branch. Notice that Jesse in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 is called a root, or it's a stump, the bottom of the tree, but there's no tree. It's all branches. Why is the Messiah called a branch? Because a tree has hundreds of branches. Maybe there are trees that have thousands of branches. I don't know, a lot of them. In every generation, there's a Mashiach who's ready to step forward. He's immortal. Eventually, he dies, and someone else from David and Solomon is ready then to step forward. And all the time, there's always Mashiach ready to step forward, always. What happened on October 6th was we were very much a divided nation. We were at each other's throats, protesting about Supreme Courts. So I don't know why, but I do know that the person I was on October 6th and the people you were on October 6th do not exist anymore. The people we all were on October 6th do not exist any longer. None of us will ever be the same. That I know for sure. And we're not at each other's throats now. We realize that many of the things that divided us were really quite silly. So the world has changed and has vacillated, which means an explosion of either pro-Jewish expressions or fiercely anti-Jewish expressions has exploded. Why? Like, why would that happen?
Now, I would say that the vast majority is anti-Jewish explosions. The pro-Jewish explosions are very few and far between. I would say the first 3 days, maybe the first week after October 7th, you saw a lot of support for Israel. But since then, it's absolutely been wavering. I mean, just look at in our own nation. And I expressed this in a video I did about a week ago, and I'll have the link right here at the top. But I expressed this in a video before, how you are seeing more and more conservative Christians turning their back on Israel. Literally turning their back on Israel. When God very specifically says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. But yet in our land, we are seeing people who supposedly follow Jesus turning their back on Israel. The support is wavering. And it's no wonder why you see many Jewish people showing concern and understanding that they're not safe anymore living where they live at around the world. It's just not safe for them any longer, as the hatred and the violence towards them is just going to increase as these days continue on. Let's continue with the video.
Doesn't make sense, right? But as it turns out, this was a trauma. This is the Messiah, the son of Joseph moment, meaning tremendous violence and turmoil that triggers a unity, a mourning and a unity. In fact, I discussed this in my latest video on Isaiah 15 through 23, which I recently released. The world will never be the same. You know, the pogroms of the past in the Ukraine, all over the Russian Empire, the most famous pogroms, how many Jews were killed in Kishinev in 1903 when the church announced that a dead boy that was discovered was killed by Jews because they were using his blood to bake matzah. That was on April 19th, 1903 in Kishinev. And they went crazy, burnt down synagogues and murdered Jews for 2 days. 2 days. How many Jews were killed? 49. Kristallnacht. We just marked the 85th anniversary of, it wasn't the beginning of the Holocaust, but in a sense, we can look to November 9th, 10th as 1938 as essentially the fuse that triggered the Shoah. 92 Jews. Kristallnacht. You know what happened October 7th? I don't need to tell you. We are all in a state of trauma. All of us are. We're in a state of complete trauma. And right now, things have to happen and change, but we'll never be the same. So we are, as I've said to you in the past, we are now in the Messianic Age. Meaning we are now observing the developments that are described in Tanakh unfolding before our eyes. And it's one of the things that's very striking about it is it's completely irrational. The things we see and the things we hear doesn't even make sense. It's not logical.
All right. He says a few things here that I wanted to address. He says that the things that they're seeing happening in the world you can see that in the Tanakh. The Tanakh is basically what the Americans or Christians would call the Old Testament. There's very specific passages that speak of the coming of the Messiah, the return of the Messiah, and what it's going to look like in those days. I want to read one passage here of the many. It's found in Zechariah 12, verses 8 through 10. And it says, "When that day comes, Adonai will defend those living in Jerusalem. On that day, even someone who stumbles will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of Adonai before them. When that day comes, I will seek to destroy all nations, attacking Jerusalem. And I will pour out on the house of David and on those living in Jerusalem a spirit of grace and prayer, and they will look to me whom they pierced. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son. They will be in bitterness on his behalf, like the bitterness of a firstborn son." That is found in the Tanakh. That is found in the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, not in the New Testament, not in the so-called Christian Bible. And what do we read? What do we see when we look at that passage? In those days, when all the surrounding nations are coming against Jerusalem, and battle and hatred for his people is mounting and coming up against them. And of course, this all culminates with the diaspora coming back into the land. with the people in the diaspora returning to Israel, the final Aliyah that's being called today. It says there that, well, let me ask, does it even say anywhere in that passage that Adonai is going to forsake his people? No, it does not. As a matter of fact, it says the opposite. It says those who pierced will mourn for him. Well, who are the ones that pierced him? Israel, the Jews. And it says that they will mourn for him. He will protect them. But yet in our culture today, we are seeing the exact opposite sentiment towards God's people, as if they are outcasts, that God has gotten rid of them and is no longer dealing with them any longer. But the point I'm trying to make in this particular passage is that this rabbi is saying that passages in the Tanakh point to the time that we're in, and he's absolutely right. But it also is pointing to him and many other Jews around the world, speaking about them, that they will look at the one that they have pierced and they will mourn for him. So as much as we can say all day long that the nation of Israel, or Jews as a whole, are lost and because they have rejected Yeshua, or Jesus the Messiah, Jesus the Christ, Scripture is plainly clear that those who pierced him will mourn for him. And people like Tovia Singer and many other Jews around the world, it is prophesied that they will look upon him that they have pierced and they will mourn for him, and God will protect them. God will be protecting Jerusalem. He doesn't need any help from the United States. The only part that we play in this is if we want judgment brought upon us if we do not bless Israel. And that's where we stand today with the current administration and our leaders in the world. So when the Messiah returns, it will be, in fact, the last trumpet at the end of Jacob's trouble. And then his 1,000-year reign will begin here on earth. But the other thing I wanted to touch on that Tovia Singer just said at the very end was that it doesn't make any sense. And he draws the analogy of someone robbing a bank. He says if somebody robs a bank, well, it makes sense because the person wants the money in the bank. But what happened on October 7th makes absolutely no sense. Well, it makes sense on a multitude of levels. I will name a couple. The first one that comes to mind is the land. In the book of Genesis, God tells Abraham to look up, look to the north, to the east, to the south, and to the west. And he goes on to tell him, all the land that you see, I promise to you and to your seed. And then we read in Galatians 3:16, that seed being Yeshua, not just his ancestry, the seed, his generations, the people that would come after Abraham, after Abraham. No, that seed, the God that Adonai was speaking of, was Yeshua, none other than Yeshua the Messiah, and anyone who is in him will be co-heirs, will be heirs according to the promises. So the land is what's at stake here. Make no mistake about it. It's all about the land. Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, you name it, Turkey, Islam, the hatred for the Jews is because they represent the culmination of everything that God is going to bring into fruition in the last days. And that is the promised land that he has given to his people and to everyone who is in Yeshua the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. That land promise is to them as well. And they know that. They absolutely know that. Hamas knows this. Iran knows this. Islam knows this. And they will do anything possible to try and stop that. And that is why the occurrences happened on October 7th. The leader from Hamas himself came out, the leader from the military wing of Hamas himself came out and admitted that the reason why they attacked Israel during that time is because of what they call the red heifers, the para aduma. And for those of you that don't know, and I'll leave another link here of the red heifers that had been brought to the land. In order for the Jews or Israel to start to build their temple on the Temple Mount, there needs to be a cleansing. The Temple Mount needs to be cleansed. They need to cleanse the Kohanim, the priests, in order to start doing the functions in the temple. If they build a temple, there's no way they can actually function in it unless they have priests that are ready and trained and cleansed in order to be able to do that. Well, the para aduma, or the red heifer, needs to be slaughtered so they can use the waters of purification and sprinkle it on the priests or the Kohanim to be able to administer the duties of the temple. It's corpse impurity. Basically, it's what it is. If there's anybody that's been around dead people or a corpse or a funeral or a cemetery, there needs to be a cleansing. And the only way prescribed in the Torah for that to happen is with a red heifer. Well, Israel is in possession of a red heifer, more than one actually. And the slaughtering of this red heifer to initiate this cleansing needs to be done within this year. Within this year. Hamas knows this. Iran knows this. Hezbollah knows this. Islam knows this. Hence, they came out and admitted that that is the reason. Because they understand that the destruction of their Dome of the Rock, their destruction of what they have on the Temple Mount currently right now is at risk. And they need to eliminate Israel and anyone who supports Israel. Although that support in many countries, especially within the United States of America, is wavering. And so this rabbi, among many others, are of the same mindset that the Moshiach is here now. That we are in fact in the Messianic Age. And as believing Christians, if we are believers in the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua HaMoshiach, we understand the implications of this. And I hope that we are getting ready for what's to come. Today, as I am recording this video, it is at sundown, will be the 9th of Av, and we are awaiting an imminent attack from Iran on the land of Israel. And many are watching as this day commences, if it will be in fact in this day or not. But nevertheless, that threat is there, and we must keep Israel in our prayers for safety and for Adonai to protect her. But all this, to sum up, all this aligns with what we believe also as well. And I did a study, and I'll link that one also here as well, on the timing of what we believe would be the return of the Messiah, which is at the door. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please like it and consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time, shalom.